Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. Wait, do you know what? It put me off then. I saw your little face laughing just when the intro was still going on. And I was like, what is this guy laughing at? What is going on?
You coughed as you unmuted the mic and it made me laugh.
Or did it come... Professional as ever on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Absolutely seamless as always. Welcome along. Good morning. It's our Thursday morning show, talking all things Leeds United ahead of a huge game against fellow relegation battlers. Nottingham Forest on Sunday at 2 o'clock. I'm Stephen Brown. Joining me as ever is Jason Booker. Welcome on, Jason. If you watch along, please do smash a like on the video, get your comments in, and get subscribed to the channel. Jason, well, it's one of those weeks, isn't it? It feels like a massive kind of week. A lot of discourse, a lot of debate going around. I would say there's been kind of a black cloud hovering above the Leeds United sphere if you kind of read too much into the kind of social media side of it. But a few days on now from the Brighton defeat, where's your head at with things at the moment?
Bit of a broad question, but yeah. I like it because it is very much like that at the minute. Like, I can't lie, Brownie. Like, I am very calm, if I'm honest. I'm very, what's the word? Stoic, I think is probably the best word I can put to it, because I just remember the fact that we were cruising through the division last season, stressing, and this is what we wanted. We wanted a Premier League campaign. We wanted to be in and amongst the big boys. Every table that I look at, and I went and had a look through the last 5 before this season, loss records of the teams that finished 17th, 16th, 15th, they were all in and around 18 to 23 losses. You know, the season that we stayed up, we lost 18 times. You know, and I just kind of remind myself of these facts that we are in a relegation battle. We knew that from game week 1, where we got a good win on the board, but if we hadn't, we'd have still been in a relegation battle. If we'd have won the game, we'd have still been in a relegation battle. Nothing's changed. I see enough within the squad to see that it's competitive. I also see enough within the squad to recognise the fact that it is where it should be. It's a bottom 5 Premier League squad. I think I've said this to you since game week 1. I think this team will finish 17th or 18th. And I think that's either staying up or going down. And I probably still feel that same way. I think it's 1 or 2 bits of quality short of being able to pull clear of that. Now that we've had 10 games, we can see that. I think 1 or 2 little bits of extra within the squad, and we probably would be looking at 13th, 14th, and a bit more of a comfortable kind of route to safety. But as it stands, we rely on Daniel Farke and we rely on this team playing above themselves to stay up. And whenever I put it out there to anybody that's of a negative kind of mindset, they can't answer the question of what were your expectations? You know, there is a few that seem to think that this team's way better than what it is. And I don't understand where that comes from either. But the large section of the fan base will admit that they thought we would be in a relegation fight, but then are getting antsy and aggravated and stressed at the fact that we're 16th, 5 points clear from relegation. They're getting antsy with the fact that Daniel Farke's not changing games, but then say that the squad's crap. I can't understand where the mindset of the large section of the vocal online fan base is. The problem is with this is that is what you see as being the majority, but I don't think it is. I think the majority is actually quite calm and fair to the position that we find ourselves in. It's just the vocal minority that are losing the mind. So,
yeah, no, I absolutely. I mean, we were chatting on the Monday show, and Downsy said, "Oh, Brownie, you're surprising me by kind of how accepting or calm you are about." I think he was expecting me to be kind of in a head loss situation, but as you've described, what were our expectations at the start of the season versus where we are? And this is what we signed up for. You're absolutely right. Week in, week out, all that anxiety trying to get promoted was for this. And I'll be completely honest with you. Leeds United in the Premier League is where I want to see this football club. If you offered me a 100-point season in the Championship or finishing 17th in the Premier League, I'm the type of fan that takes 17th in the Premier League. I just am, because it's top level. It's the ultimate test. And that's where I want us to be, and that's where I want us to compete regardless.
it's the building block as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just felt like it were important to put it there. Like, this isn't where we want to be long term.
No.
This might be 2-3 seasons where we experience this, I hope, you know. But then after season 4 and season 5, I want to see us start breaching 12th, breaching 8th, you know, then being in the conversation like Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton have been, where you're challenging for outskirts of Europe. You know, Forest did it last season as a bit of a one-off, but you know, like that kind of conversation can be entertained. I think Skip's comment is great, and I think
Yeah.
he's playing a massive part, and we'll bring it up in a second. I think also the Bielsa first season is making a lot of, and I use this term loosely, but I think it's fact, casual fans just think that it's that easy. Bielsa did it once, so that is the blueprint and the script that can be written by then any manager that then comes thereafter. And it's nonsense. It's a lightning in a bottle one-off moment was that. And, you know, if that season was played in front of fans, would it have worked out the same? I'm not so sure. You know, if it wasn't Bielsa, he just shouldn't even be considered, in my opinion.
Well, do you know what it is as well, though? I think it's a realigning of where we see Leeds United in the Premier League. Because I grew up, Leeds were a top Premier League team.
Yeah.
And wrongly, well, yeah, definitely wrongly. When we came back into the Premier League, I thought, right, this is our moment to shine. This is where we're, like you say, building block. We're going to, you know, get into Europe eventually. I think a lot of fans felt like that. And then obviously the wheels fell off completely. And you kind of go, yeah, but we're not a yo-yo team. We're not a team in the Premier League that fights relegation. But that's just nostalgia. That's just, O'Leary, Howard Wilkinson Day. It doesn't have any, it doesn't mean a damn thing, does it?
You know what we are, Browney? We're a mid-table championship side.
Yeah.
Like,
if you look at that record,
it's hard for people to accept it. I said this the other night. The fan base isn't. The numbers worldwide that we have as a fan base, that isn't. The ground isn't. The history isn't. But the playing squad and our more recent history of actually what happens out on the pitch is that we are a championship team that's had a couple of seasons in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We are no bigger on the pitch than Norwich or West Brom or Fulham that are, you know, still in the Premier League, and a couple of others. Like, we're not. Like, I know it's Sheffield United and Burnley have spent more time in the Premier League over the last 20 years than us.
Yeah.
So as much as we want to get back to where we feel like we belong, like, there's a path to get there that happens on the pitch.
Yeah.
And people, you're absolutely spot. I think that's another part of it as well. That's a great point.
Yeah, let's bring Skip's point up, because I've got a little graphic I want to throw up as well in regards to this. Skip, morning lads. Do we think how good Sunderland are doing is causing some fans to have a meltdown and want to blame anything? Well, it's fascinating because they got, they played Monday night, and there was an interview pre-game with their owner, and it's caught a lot of attention from the Leeds United fan base. I want to bring up the quotes here. So this is the Sunderland owner, Kirill Lewis-Dreyfus. This is what he had to say about Sunderland's aims and ambitions in the Premier League. So the stats showed that unless we do anything extraordinary in the transfer window, we go back down to the Championship. Fortunately, we were able to conclude many of the transfers we wanted to. We have signed a new team of players. We didn't have a budget as such, but the great start can affect what we can do in the January transfer window a little bit, definitely. We're preparing for all scenarios, but hopefully we will be going into the January window with a top 10 finish in mind, and we'll prepare and execute the transfer window to give us the best chance. Now, predictably, you can imagine what the response is, and it 9 times out of 10 it'd be, why didn't Leeds do this? Particularly a bit about not having a budget. It is kind of thrown around there. And, you're looking at Granit Xhaka, who Jamie Carragher said is one of the signings of the season. It's all it's going so nicely for them at the moment. It's like the promotion dream. You go up, you're confident, you got shiny new toys, and everything's going well. And then where that team that unfortunately, we had that Bielsa season and we didn't build on it, and we've been relegated, and it means that our wings are clipped a little bit. We're all a little bit more skeptical about life in the Premier League. We know the downs of it. Sunderland, it feels like they're a bit immune to that at the minute. But it definitely, I think the Sunderland thing, and I think it from the first game of the season, I think it's it's affected Leeds fans' heads.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that interview is easy to do when you sat on 18 points after 9 games. I think if you were sat on 8 points after 10 games, it wouldn't have been coming out and saying that interview. I think there's a few things to factor in. I think the performances have been outshone by the results, and I think ultimately that's all that really does matter. I get that. However, the trend will go back a little bit the other way, and they won't finish anywhere near the way that they're trending at the minute. Would be my gut instinct. Could be wrong, but I would probably bet that they will start losing a lot of games. You know, the stats show that. I think that you have to bear in mind that they have almost had the luxury of being crap for a number of years, which has then led them into this situation where they didn't expect to really get promoted last season. You know, Sheffield United really should have taken that 3rd spot. They didn't. Another team probably would have been beyond them. They've been growing and they've been building, and I think they've put a good infrastructure in place there. And, you know, the recruitment in and around the youngsters that they brought in, the manager obviously had done really well. They brought in players like Enzo Lafay in the January window to kind of push them on. But they were put into a position that when they then got promoted, they had a completely different landscape of what they could do in comparison to us. You know, we saw the fact that we had to spend 100 million to rebuild a squad. You know, we had to buy 10 players for 100 million, 10 million pound a player. They were able to go out and spend 25 to 35 million on individuals. That is as a result of our poor management and leadership before the 49ers. Whether we want to get into the fact that the 49ers had a part to play in that or not, that's irrelevant right now. But we know what Rads and Orta and the money that was spent, especially during the relegation season. So we unfortunately are living as a consequence of that, and then missing out on promotion season 1 too. Because if we'd have got promoted if we had this same squad that we had at the end of season 1, the rebuild job would have been smaller, because we'd have had the likes of Jorginho Rutter, Chris Somerville, Archie Gray, all to build.
We'd have had 2 Premier League losses allowed as well in the accounts for the rolling 3 years.
Exactly. So we'd have had more money to spend. So, you know, there's all these factors that come in, and that is just the landscape and the position that we find ourselves in now. Our trajectory right now is the target of 17th. Their trajectory right now is probably to finish 12th or above. You know, it doesn't matter that they came through the playoffs and we won the league. That the landscape is now totally. It's not just a case of, well, they won the league, so they should finish the highest. That's not how football works. You know, they've also got the lack of expectation as well, Brownie, at Sunderland. You know, Sunderland are a pretty big club, but right now they're riding the crest of a wave. Really, the momentum is taking them a certain way, and they don't have the stress, I don't think, that the Leeds fans' expectation puts on the club. They just don't. You know, they might have that again in a couple of years' time, but right now they don't have it.
No, I think also as well, it's sliding doors, isn't it? You know, they don't win that playoff final, and, you know, who knows what happens there. Regis Labrie may leave, you know, whatever. They may have had to rebuild. They'll have definitely sold Bellingham, and then they've got a whole other, you know, job to do. And, you know, I remember 3 years ago, same owners, and people were unhappy at Sunderland. You know, they got promoted and Tony Mowbray left, and it all seemed like that project was kind of up in flames. It sounds very simplistic, but it's those results at the end of the day. I mean, watching you know, them a little bit on Monday, and I mean, Everton should have been out of sight, you know, before they, you know, and it's little moments and things like that, and you go, yeah, it's happening for him. Sometimes I think, you know, in football, it's your moment, isn't it? It's your moment. And, you know, it's like when we beat Man City away with 10 men in that first season. I mean, it's like, you know, and then the season after we lose 7-0. I mean, it's bonkers.
Right. You're spot on. I mean, they definitely are living a bit of a charmed life. But again, you go and I'm not trying to discredit anything that Bielsa did in season 1, but you go and have a look at the underlying stats of that season. Yeah. Go and have a look how clinical we were. Yeah. We were needing, you know, 2 chances to score 1 goal. Now we're needing 6 chances to score 1 goal, and it was same in the season 2 and season 3. You know, the XG completely fell off. In season 1, everything we touched went in. You know, and again, we played some swashbuckling, wonderful football, but sometimes, as you say, it's just the way that it falls for you. You know, in that season, we became everybody's second team because of the way that it went. But once people started figuring out, and, you know, they understood the quality that they had on the pitch in comparison to us, it soon caught up with us. So it will catch up with Sunderland, because on paper, they're not that great. You know, they're still playing with the likes of Don Ballard at centre back. He's all right. He's a good, really good Championship centre back, but he's not a top Premier League centre back. And the team is actually full of them. I think, you know, a lot of the signings that they made are not even that great, really. It's just they've fallen together nicely and it's working at the minute. You go look at like Bertrand Traore on the wing. He stunk the place out at Aston Villa.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
I think
if we'd have signed him, I'd have just said we'd have signed a tall Dan James. I wouldn't have been excited about that signing at all. And he's doing quite well at the minute. So
yeah, and I think what's the shine on their signings is Granit Xhaka, because he is
top signing.
I mean that's elite level vision, passing, he's and you know, it's almost like Henderson at Brentford, you know, different levels, but you know, in terms of that real kind of quality, you know, just someone who's so much quality, you know, and that probably puts a shine on the whole recruitment.
People really underrate and underestimate Granit Xhaka. He's a top player. I think because people remember the version of him at Arsenal that just kept on getting sent off all the time. Like he's a top player. I mean, there's a reason that Leverkusen signed him and then went undefeated and ended up winning the league. They didn't even want to let him go. No. You know, this summer just gone, and the kind of Sunderland fought him out of the door at 33-year-old. You know, it says everything about him. He's a top player. It'd have been a great signing for us, you know, in and amongst there. And don't get me wrong, like we know we were in competition with Sunderland for some of these signings, and we unfortunately have been trumped. Like what do? We were in for Diarra, we know that. Do we spend 10-15 million quid more than we wanted to get him over the top of him and then sacrificing other areas of the pitch? I probably wouldn't have gone down that route myself. You know, how do you balance that out when we needed so much?
Yeah, absolutely. And when our purse strings are a little bit smaller than theirs to do it. I was thinking this the other day, do we, you know, if you say get to January, I was thinking, is there someone in the market, maybe 33, 34, even maybe 35, who has been elite, maybe even won stuff, who you could tempt to Leeds just to kind of, I don't know, give us that kind of confidence boost? You know, you go back 30 years when we got Gordon Strachan, and he was a title winner and he was a, you know, top player, and it was like he just elevated everyone's level. I look at the Leeds team, I wonder, I know we've got Calvert-Lewin and Longstaff who are good Premier League pros, but you know, if you could, maybe, is there somebody out there that Leeds could potentially, you know, get into that team just to kind of boost the levels a little bit? But I don't know. I have to do a search on Football Manager, I think, to try and find one.
I think you make a really good point, and I think if you have a look over the seasons, we've seen signings like that even at Leeds that have come in and done that. I remember Dougie Friedman coming in. I know we ended up not going up that season, but he came in when we really were struggling. We ended up in the playoffs. He made a massive part in the result over Carlisle in that season, and he did elevate the squad. I remember us signing Alan Thompson, and again, I know that we ended up going down, but he completely changed the way that running went. And he ended up playing a big part in League One the following season. You know, some of these players, they can have a big impact. Look at Danny Welbeck at Brighton at the minute. I mean, it shocked me to think that to find out that he was 35, same age as me. He's same year of birth as me. Yeah. Speaking of Football Manager, I was browsing around it yesterday, and I thought, I was Danny Welbeck, and I thought he was like 31, 32. He's 35-year-old, is Danny Welbeck. So, you know, like these players can make a huge difference. So maybe there is one of them. Ashley Young went in at Everton and played a big part over their last couple of seasons. There's others as well. I'd have loved to see sign James Milner. James Milner would have been mine.
Now that James Milner would have been, absolutely been all right. Great. You know, my wild card, my wild one that I was thinking, no, we'd never do this. But then I'm looking for who he's playing for at the minute. And I'm like, could we have done something there? But I look at someone like Thomas Muller, elite mentality, won everything in the game, World Cup winner, Champions League, everything. 30, I think he's 36 now, but he's playing at Vancouver.
He's over in America.
MLS. But I'm like, do you know what I mean? That type of signing where it's so kind of elite that you just think they could really really help us.
Sergio Busquets would have been, he's out in MLS at Miami. Jordi Alba's over there as well. You know, there is others, but you're right. Like, and you know, I remember back in the great days of the Premier League, like Sam Allardyce's Bolton used to do it a lot, didn't they? They bring in a Euro Joker or an Ivan Campo, or you know, JJ Kocher. They had several within that squad, and they were all a little bit over the hill, but they made such a difference to the way that team operated. So I think it's a great shout, mate. I think it is something that we still miss within this squad, which is why Longstaff was so important. Calvert-Lewin's got importance within the squad as well, but we do miss that. We don't have a lot of that, and you know, statesmen, somebody a little bit older, maybe even north of 33, 34, would actually be really, really good for this squad, as long as I've got the quality still to be able to, you know, to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Moving on then, looking at growing concern, obviously, is the away form, and not a great performance or result at the weekend. Obviously, we've got Nottingham Forest away this season. I do just want to read out a little stat that was kind of brought up that I've seen today. And it's kind of showing the difference between kind of away and home. But Leeds United 17 goals conceded is the fourth worst, but the underlying numbers hint at a defensive upside at Ellen Road. So they've conceded the fewest big chances at home. There's only Arsenal and Manchester City who've allowed fewer shots in their opening 10 matches. But closing down opponents and lapses in concentration have been concerns, with Leeds allowing several shots from outside the box, in which case some have gone off deflections there as well. And, you know, this kind of difference between home and away, I mean, you probably can't have it more acutely pointed out in terms of West Ham one week and then, you know, the Brighton game at the weekend. I think I saw your TikTok that mentioned it first. Was there's not many teams that have even won more than one game away from home, though, is there? So you think, oh, it's horrible, but I think there's like 12 teams or something, isn't there? That's only won one.
You go to seventh, Liverpool in seventh on the away form. This is before you find a team that's won 2 away games. So it just proves the point that, you know, most teams don't win away from home.
Yeah.
Now, is there a case to say that we want to be doing a little bit better away from home? I'd agree with that. I think, you know, the Fulham game wasn't great, but we were probably in a 50-50 battle in that game. I'd say a point would have been fair. We know what happened at the end. Wolves, we obviously got the win. Arsenal, we wouldn't expect anything. And then Brighton, I think that's it, isn't it, for the away games then?
Yeah.
And Brighton away, would we really have expected anything? No. Would we have expected a better performance? Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely... The Brighton game for me is the most disappointing performance of the season, because I think Arsenal will do what they did to many teams. I think it was a little bit of an isolated incident for us. I think, you know, when you go away to Brighton, you don't expect to be able to get anything, but you're hopeful that you might be able to turn up, play well, and you know, hopefully they have a bit of an off day and you get something. And unfortunately, we didn't. So, you know, we didn't even compete, really. It was the first game of the season where I felt like we just didn't even compete.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not getting stressed about this away form as such yet. The away table still has us in 17th. Guess what? 17th is enough. Yeah, that's all I want. Like, I've genuinely seen some fans this week, on many socials, not just Twitter, say that our mentality is weak because all we want is survival, and it's made me have head loss, because I'm like, you are delusional. You are, and not only are you delusional, you're ruining the experience for yourself.
Yeah.
And you're ruining the experience for anybody that's then unfortunately going to listen to you, because this is as good as it gets right now.
Yeah.
Like, how else can we dress it up, Brownie? Like, if Daniel Farke for me finishes anything above 16th, he has performed a miracle. Finishing 17th is an unreal job. It's still a really, really good job. I would argue that finishing 18th, but being in the battle to stay up until the last game of the season, is still a good job. I would argue even that. And I would say that a failure for him would be bottom, you know, and not in the battle to stay up with 6 or 7 games to go. That's what I would consider a failure. Maybe I am weak, but I don't think so. I think that is a very fair reasoning for a team that's just been promoted.
I think we've got a bottom 3 squad. I think squad for squad, I think we've got a bottom 3 squad. I really do. I look at West Ham and Forest, who are in the bottom three at the moment. I go, they've both got better squads and better players than us, 100%.
Yeah,
I'm only really looking at Burnley and Wolves. You know,
yeah.
if you got Fulham have got some decent players. Everton got good play. You know, it gets very out of our league from that point. Just
sorry,
no. Go ahead, mate. You
quickly just going to say, like, this is why we have to get on board and understand with the fact that this team are needing to outperform themselves continuously to pick up results and stay out of that bottom three. There will have been teams in the past that were worse than this one that have stayed up. I think like the West Brom team that stayed up under Brian Robson, as an example, they were terrible. Bottom at Christmas, they should have gone down and they miraculously stayed up. End of the day, football is week on week, one game at a time, so anything can happen. But in terms of the actual squad, you would swap all of ours for everybody else other than Burnley and Wolves. Every single one of them, you would swap them in the hope of saying, right, we've got a better squad now, we should stay up. And then you can actually fire some of the accusations that you are doing at Daniel Farke.
Yeah. Is there... Because I saw this as well this week, where Daniel Farke in top flight football, including the Bundesliga, has only won 4 away games in top flight football in totality. And I was surprised at that. I've got to admit, I was a bit like, oh wow, that's quite.
Is that not just Premier League?
No, Bundesliga as well. Yeah, he only includes the Bundesliga as well. I mean, that kind of drop out. I mean, what do you think? Is there anything tactically we can look at Daniel Farke and go, you know, how he's setting us up away from home? I mean, I don't feel... I mean, there was a period after Brighton got up that we started to do our stuff a little bit more. We started to kind of, you know, get going a little bit. But tactically, is there anything you would point at Farke? I mean, it's quite an astounding record, you know, especially when you take into consideration the Bundesliga part as well. But is there anything Farke, in your point of view, should be doing differently or needs to do differently away from home?
I think there will be. I think, you know, he's not infallible. He's not perfect. He's far from perfect, actually. You know, I think he's the best man for the job, but he's got loads of areas of you know, improvement. I think the difficulty comes in even judging this by saying, well, ultimately, what can he do? Because he's only got the squad that he's got. You know, you can start trying to reinvent the wheel and do something different. I think people have got this idea that a 5-back is the automatic solution.
Yeah.
I don't see that. You know, like, then what do you do with Noah Okafor? What do you do with Dan James? What do you do with Willie Nonto? You could argue, what do you do with Brendan Aronson? Like, it leaves another conundrum altogether. Do you want to just go there and see us sit back? Is that what you're saying? You wanting us to just come low block, no shots on goal, and just try and steal a point or steal a goal on the counter? You know, I've seen people say, oh, 5-3-2, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, knockdowns to Joe Perreault. That's the solution. Is it really? Like, you know, I know it's easy for you to say that, but you don't know that. Sorry, just quickly while I'm on the rampage. I do think the within this squad we have got the capabilities of maybe playing a 3-back. And looking at the width coming from Jadon Bogle and then Gudmundsson. But I do think it leaves us very isolated from that front two.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't got the runners in midfield. So to play a 5-3-2, you need real legs in that 3. Real legs. You know, people would have to get on board with Brendan Aronson playing in there because he would have to. He would have to play as one of them 3. Stack, Tanaka, Ampadu, and Longstaff, they're not mobile enough to do that, especially away from home. How are you going to get any support in and around Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Joe Perreault with them 3? Really? Like, again, if you're logicking it, it doesn't make sense. We have so little creative flair in that midfield area that our passes have to go to feet all the time. That's why we play with the possession-heavy football that we do. Yeah, and then people will fire at me. Well, Daniel Farke had part of the recruitment strategy. Are you telling me that he wouldn't have wanted a more, you know, attacking, creative midfielder? Of course he would.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just, I was trying to get it up so I could quote it exactly, but there's a great Bielsa quote about imagined solutions, and people are always like, if we just play Joe Perreault up front and we're going to suddenly score loads of goals, if we play with 3 at the back, it's going to solve everything. And it's like there's these imagined kind of solutions to it, when in reality, it just won't look anything like. And like you say, if you did play with wing backs, what happens to Nonto and Okafor and Dan James and Aaron? It's suddenly you're losing something there to think, oh, this is going to be amazingly, this is going to work. I mean, Bijou rode on strike. How many times have they played in a back three? Things like that. I mean, would I like a bit more tactical flexibility? It's hard to even say yes to that because of how
you don't know what it looked like.
No, exactly. And I'm sure. I think there's been lots of times, especially when Leeds have had here, there, and everywhere with managers where they've tried something different and it's fallen flat on its face. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, no, that was terrible. Don't do that again.
Me and you have both been around the Leeds sphere long enough, and it surprises me that more fans don't think with more logic when they're talking. But we've all seen car crash managers come in that have, started with their squad or their formation or the tactic and then ended up developing it into something else because they've been desperate. Yeah. I was there the day, I mentioned this a lot, when we signed Mansour Assoumani, who ended up going and playing non-league football for Wrexham. We signed him under Gary McAllister on a short-term contract before we played MK Dons away. We went down there and we lost 3-0. He started because we were desperate. We were struggling defensively and he got thrown in. He was horrendous. And he ended up getting released of the game after and McAllister got sacked. And that is what desperate managers do. That are not comfortable in their own skin. They've lost the dressing room and they are desperate for a solution. The day that Daniel Farke, and God watch us do it on Sunday now that I'm saying this, but the day that Daniel Farke makes a radical tactical change to the structure at starting lineup is the day that I'll probably say, Browney, we've got a problem here, and he's probably not the man.
I think you bang on. It's like even in Football Manager, when you start scrabbling around with your tactics, you can see your team cohesion, just the bar drops, doesn't it? You're like, oh no, I'm screwed here. Yeah. I mean, talk about wild takes. I did see on a podcast about because Joffrey's doing so well in the Championship, about him coming back in as an option. I saw that. I was like, yeah. I was just like, wow. There are apparently rumours of Ramazani being recalled, though. It's not going well at Valencia. He's not starting in the bottom three and everything like that. And obviously, it'd be the cheapest option, I guess, to recall. What impact he'd have, I'm not sure. I don't know if he'd have much impact, to be honest. Coming back to this weekend, then Forest, Sean Dyche at Forest, doing his business there. How big a weekend is this for Daniel Farke, though? Because if we see, for me, it's not a must-win. I agree with you. It's not a must-win from the fact that you play 38 games and we're 10 games in. It's not a must-win. It feels for Farke, though, important that there's a performance at least, and I think got to try and get something, point at least, because the run after it, Jay, as Skip has said, I'll just bring up his comment, very tough run right up until something like January the 17th. We're looking at Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool. We've got some real difficult ones coming up. What needs to happen for Farke here? Because I feel like this feels like, and we've had it a couple of times with Farke where things feel like that pressure's building and it's just about to blow, and he always digs a result out. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, your take on how big this weekend is.
I'm just before I do talk Farke, I'm just gonna say Joffrey is at Championship level and needs to stay at Championship level. I am really glad to see that he's doing well, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great kid. And he, watching some highlight moments of us over the last few years, he was responsible for 2 or 3 really top moments at Leeds. Yeah. I'd forgotten that he won that penalty against Wolves at home on the opening day, the 1-1 draw, and then obviously the Norwich goal and all the rest of it. Lovely kid. Love his mum on Twitter. She's always like his biggest fan. And he's a good player. He just needs to find his position, and hopefully he's finding it. But he's a Championship level player. Let's not go there. Okay, so Sunday is massive. It's massive. I'd argue it's bigger for Sean Dyche than it is for Daniel Farke. I know that we don't think about their perspective in this, but bear in mind that they've already sacked 2 managers. They've not started particularly well in the Premier League. I think they've lost to Bournemouth, drew to Manchester United. You could argue that the point against Manchester United was good, but I know that after the Bournemouth loss, there were unrest about Dyche straight away. And we know that Marinakis is a loose cannon. You know, if they go and lose 2-3-0 to Leeds on Sunday, imagine the pressure that's going to be under him. So I would say that this is a massive game for both. I think it's a bigger game for Daniel Farke than it is for Leeds United as a whole. Because I think if we lose this game, the season's not dead and buried. There's still plenty of time to go. I would argue that it's more likely, call me mad, that we beat Villa at home, that we beat Chelsea at home, and that we beat Liverpool at home than it is that we win this game.
Yeah.
Call me mad. But I think that Ellen Road is such a factor. I think the home form in general for any team hoping to stay up is a massive factor, but Ellen Road is a bit special. You know, we saw it at West Ham. I had one of my good friends were in the West Ham end last Friday, or the Friday before, and he said the place was just an absolute bear pit, Jay. Like the atmosphere was unreal, and Nuno even came out and afterwards and said it was horrible, you know, to play in, and that's what we bring. And we need to make sure we keep on bringing that. So this, for me, while it is a massive game, you are not going to see an overreaction if we lose 1-0 and it's a tight game. You're just not going to get it. Now, if the performance is stinky, you know, because right now Forest are not in a good place and they can be there to be got at, it's not the same as the Brighton game. No. If the performance is stinky, again, I'm not going to say that Daniel Farke should be sacked. You're not going to get that out of me for a while yet because we need to see a little bit more, you know, towards that direction for that to be the case. It's not just all or nothing for me, but I will be concerned if the performance isn't there, if the effort isn't there, you know, if we're not in the faces, we're not making things happen. I will be concerned at that. I would bite your hand off now with a point.
Yeah, I would be happy with a point. It will keep us tracking for a point per game as well, and you know, it's that situation at the moment. I mean, West Ham are 4 points behind us, Forest 5 points behind us. So it's a really important game from that perspective as well. I agree with you. I didn't actually look at it from Forest's point of view, but you're absolutely bang on. That's huge for Dyche, is that because if you know, if he loses that, you know, then who knows, he could be gone out the door in a few games' time as well.
Just quickly on that before you skip. People are so quick because they've just got the Leeds glasses on to forget about the opposition. They don't consider the fact that there's two teams trying to win a football game. Yeah. It's just Leeds have turned up and won, so they've done well, or Leeds turn up and lose, so they've done crap. It's not there's never any kind of context applied to what's happening at the other end of this. Because if we were in a Forest situation now, we'd been up a few seasons and we had Leeds United coming to the City ground, we'd be all like, this is a must win. It would be it'd be worse than what we're showing right now as Leeds. It'd be even higher. So
100%. Just want to say a quick hi to Mark as well. Thanks for coming along, mate. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I agree with you. I think the performance is important here. I think we need to see much more. I think it's interesting. I mean, if you go back to the Burnley away performance, we won all the underlying stats and everything, but I thought even on the eye test, we were just, there was like a tepidness almost, a bit of a slowness, a bit of a kind of, you know, and it's, I mean, if it is a stinker, let's say it's a stinker performance again, it's similar to kind of I think what did it with me last weekend as well, that kind of it wasn't a kind of gritty loss, it wasn't a narrow loss, it was like we played so poorly and we were miles off it in so many ways. I mean, what do you think? What is this? I mean, I know we're not inside the four walls of the dressing room, but this kind of mentality of, you know, going away and performing like that, I mean, where does it come from? I mean, obviously we've seen the same players, like, you know, Ampadu's a perfect case in point. You know, he's brilliant against West Ham, he's dominating the game, and then the complete opposite away from home. I mean, is it a simple case of, right, you're not at Ellen Road, so you haven't got the adrenaline or something? I don't know what it is. I mean, what is it that's kind of creating that kind of lack of tempo or lack of intensity?
This will get spoken about forever because it is a weird phenomenon, the fact that there's a home form and an away form. You know, the teams can perform in such a way at a certain ground but then can't at another. It comes down to mentality, most of it. I think, we mentioned it at the top of the show with regards to like experience and leadership within the team. We have a very young squad, and then you throw in the fact that the ability levels are a little bit lower. Quite often it's the mental side of the attributes that then makes the technical abilities be able to shine. And sometimes when you've got your support around you, that's easier for players that are a little bit weaker in the mind. That's not saying that they're weak-minded, but mentally they're not able to deal with that quite as well when they've got a hostile setting as they have when they've got a supportive setting. Going away will always be more difficult. Brighton, as an example, when they go away from home, they know that Leeds are going to be more at them, so they will naturally sit a little bit further back, which then makes them a little bit less likely to be as creative and as fluent, and then Leeds get more on top. You know what I mean? Or the lower down the pyramid team gets more on top. That's why your top teams are capable of going away and just doing exactly what they do at home, away from home. Arsenal, Man City, over the years. But Arsenal this season is an example. The game of the weekend against Burnley could have been at the Emirates. I mean, if you watch that game, I mean, they absolutely dominated every single inch square of the game. Burnley didn't have a shot until the 80th minute. You know what I mean? So, and we only lost 2-0. It could have been an absolute hatful. So, yeah, it is a weird phenomenon, mate. I haven't got the exact answer for you, but I think that is what it is. I think it's a mentality thing more than a technical thing.
Yeah, our very own Lou Sale, welcome along, mate. Over the years, there's a need for instant success, promotion, winning every week. Some forget the human element of players. They're not machines. They're allowed to have a bad day like us all. Come on, Lou, you'd never have a bad day, mate. Come on.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I'll just share a little story with you. I train a boxer who fought on Saturday. And he last Saturday, and he didn't have a great performance on the day. And it turned out, long story short, he'd had a bit on his mind before going into the ring. And I said to him afterwards, we got the result, he got the win, he got it over the line. But I said to him afterwards, I said, look, we all go around having different variations of day to day. Some days are good, some days are bad. But at the end of most of our bad days, we don't have to get into the boxing ring and perform in front of 800 people. I said, the fact that you've still been able to do that is a testament to your character. Yeah, and that is the fact for most of us. If I come home after having a bad day, I'll stick Football Manager on and I'll chill for a couple of hours, and the next day I'll wake up and it'll be fine. But if Ethan Ampadu's had a bad day, or he's had a fallout with misses the night before, and then he's travelling down to Brighton and having a stinker in front of 30,000 people and all of us watching at home, he's got all that to answer for. Lou's spot on. He's not a machine. He's just a human. I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but we have to just allow it to be, and remember, technically these players are not as good as most of the Premier League players that we're coming up against, so they have to be right at the top of their level.
Yeah, absolutely. How worried are you about the number of goals we're conceding at the minute? Because it's going up, and I always have this thing of, I'm happy as long as we don't see us conceding a lot, particularly Ellen Road, and that's based on the last Premier League campaign where when those floodgates opened when we were in the Premier League last time, I mean, it was just like, teams could score for fun against us. And that's that worrying place you want to go. And I think even when you start switching manager, then it's very difficult to pull back. I mean, what's going on here? Why are we all of a sudden conceding so many goals?
I am a bit worried about it. I will say I was far less worried about it before the weekend, because again, not to hark too much on the stats and XG, but the XG was kind of in our favour, really. Most of the teams that we'd conceded 2 goals against had an XG of 0.5. So it stands to reason that most of the time they're not going to score these chances. I know Lucas Perry's been getting a bit of a battering. I personally don't think he could have done anything about all 3 of them goals over there. They were all cutbacks, which tell you that it's a defensive structural issues, switching off and them getting into areas. But Brighton had a 2.99 XG at the weekend, which tells you that they deserve to score 3 goals. And it's the first time that we've really looked like that, apart from Arsenal. It's the first time that we've really been cut open. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that kind of trends now. I am worried the fact that we've not had a clean sheet since the 3rd game of the season. After Newcastle at home, we were all saying, we've already equalled Leicester and Southampton's, I think it was, or Ipswich's and Southampton's, whichever, I can't remember which way around. We'd equalled their clean sheet record, and since then we've not got one. We should have got one against West Ham, And we should have got one against Fulham as well, if we're being fair. So again, playing devil's advocate. So am I worried? A little, yeah. I was much happier with it against West Ham. And that were only one game prior to this Brighton result. So we need a little bit more time to kind of analyse that. One thing that I can guarantee, though, I've seen people say that he'll get sacked if he loses this weekend. He won't.
No.
I
think the only time he'll be at risk is if we drop into the bottom three, because I think the 49ers are numbers guys. And I think if we're tracking to stay up, he'll be absolutely fine. The only thing I could think of is if you start getting cut adrift, and if, but then it's probably already too late to turn it around by then anyway.
Yeah, no, mate. I mean, I don't know about you, but I am well prepared for us being in the bottom three come January the 1st. Are you? Given the run that we've got?
Sorry, I was reading Lou's comment. Say that again, mate.
I'm saying, are you prepared for being in the bottom three come January the 1st? Because I am.
Yeah. With that run, I think there's no. I mean, I part of me thinks, look, we've got to pull a result out if we're going to stay up. If we're going to look at the thing of staying up, in that horrible run we've got, we do have to pull a result out, I think. I don't think we can just go and lose 7 games on the bounce. We've got to do something. But, yeah, the likelihood is even if we win, it might be just one in that entire run. And there's a very strong possibility that we will be in the bottom 3 at that point. So, yeah, I get what you mean. And will the 49ers look at that and go, well, the context is we've had this horrible run and Farke has shown that he can get points when it's more reasonable opposition?
The performances matter in them games. Like, the context of it all matters. Like, if we're starting to get battered and we're not creating and the home form goes down the toilet, then it's a different conversation, because then you're into the realms of, have they lost confidence in the manager? Are the tactics not working anymore? But at the minute, you can't say that that's the case. And I think I am well prepared for us being in the bottom 3 come January the 1st because of this run during December. I think if we're within touching distance, I think that's good. I think if we're out of the bottom 3 come playing Manchester United on January the 4th,
superb.
I think we've done an unreal job.
Yeah, all day. So, this weekend, then, any changes you would like to see or expect to see in terms of the starting lineup?
What do you change? I think I want to see Stack coming for Tanaka.
Yeah.
I think that would
be mine.
Especially in this game, they've got some real danger in that area of the pitch. Somebody needs to get on top of Morgan Gibbs-White, and they need to give the license to the others in the midfield to really close down. I'd go Longstaff, Stack, and Ampadu in the midfield 3. Honestly, I'd keep Brendan out on the right, unless we're going to really sit deep and then look to hit him on the counter. But I would. What else can he change? Okafor on the left, Calvert-Lewin.
Controversial, playing devil's advocate. And I would have said he's undroppable. Ampadu, bit of patchy form. Should it now be a conversation that he's up for being dropped and you bring Stack in there? Because before I think we all said no, Ampadu's a mainstay. But is there an argument that actually he should be one that's vulnerable and maybe even dropped for the weekend?
I think there's a conversation around it more long term. I think he was still very good against West Ham, which was only a game ago. I'm not going to, I know he has had patchy form, especially away from home, but I think he's important. I think he's a real leader in there. And given how crunch of a game this is, I wouldn't drop him. And I know for a fact that Farke won't. I'm not saying he's undroppable under Farke forever, but he won't drop him for this one.
Yeah, no.
And then outside of that, mate, I can't think of anything else that happens. I really can't. Straub might come back in. I hope that doesn't happen, but that might happen. I'm
going to, just before we wrap up, prediction for the weekend.
I can't lie to you. I said this to you the other day. My gut instinct tells me that we lose this one. I can't throw it off. I can't kind of shift it, if I'm honest. I think it's a huge, huge game for them. Huge game.
I've got a nightmare scenario that keeps flashing in my head. And it probably will remind you of my more pessimistic Leeds United supporting days. But I've got this horrible thing of a couple of early goals for Forest and they end up getting a big score, 4-3, 4, something like that. and then it's the international break where we've got to sit on it. That's the fear. That's the fear.
Listen, I mean, if it's an absolute drubbing, could he be sacked? I don't.
If it was a ridiculous drubbing,
yeah,
then
it won't be that. I don't think. I mean, I understand why you're picturing that. I hope it's just a catastrophizing. I'm hoping that we can get away from there with a point, mate. I would happily take a Newcastle 0-0, absolute stink fest. Don't even remember the game in a couple of months' time. We drew 0-0 and that were it. I would take it now. I'd bite your hand off. Get a clean sheet, get out of there and go on to Ellen Road after the international break. Keep them 2 points further behind us. My gut feeling is that we probably lose this 1 or 2-0.
Yeah.
I hate predicting against us, but that is my gut feeling.
Yeah. Me and Jay, we will be back straight after the game at the weekend to give our post-match thoughts. So please do tune into that, Leeds United fans. Get your likes in on this video, get your comments in, and also subscribe to the channel. We will see you Sunday afternoon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.